Russian propagandists are panicking. Are Ukrainian special forces attacking the Russian military in Syria through Syrian rebels? Ukraine trained Syrian anti-government forces. The Syrian militants have marked themselves with yellow and blue tape, something that is extremely weird, right? Just means Ukrainian drone operators trained and clearly work with the Syrian moderate rebels. Ukrainian drone operators have a trained instinct to avoid friendly fire by avoiding these two color bands, yellow and blue. Hence, the drone operators fighting around Aleppo now participated in the Ukraine war or were trained by Ukrainian down operators, but most likely it's a mixture of people. They already did that multiple times. This is just the first time at such a big scale. Reminder, there are also anti-Russian government Chechen units fighting for Ukraine, they say. The same patch is worn by the Syrian moderate rebels with yellow and blue bands, like in Ukraine. They would be welcomed by Zelensky by the logic, "My enemy's enemy is my friend," and the Ukrainians happily trained them so they can attack Russia and allies in another front. Previously, Ukraine also trained militants in Mali to attack Wagner soldiers with drones. The Ukrainian army spreads their drone knowledge to all anti-Russian factions across the world. As it seems, Russian propagandists continue. They also trains Sudanese soldiers. According to the Kyiv Post, Ukrainian special forces and Syrian rebels are carrying out attacks against Russian mercenaries in Syria. The video dated March 2024 was allegedly obtained by the Kyiv Post from sources in the Ukrainian military intelligence. More footage of Ukrainian special forces operating and attacking Wagner fighters in Sudan. The mission was most likely organized by Turkey and USA to divert Russian resources from the Ukraine war. But Ukraine provided the training for drones to the least. Russians are worried. And now it's time for Warthog Defense comment for the great investigation story from Russian propaganda, which in most parts, according to us, is true. Training militias in regions like Syria, Mali, and Sudan to counter Russian forces aligns with Ukraine's strategic interests and is a justifiable course of action. By supporting local groups, Ukraine extends its influence against Russian aggression beyond its borders, creating pressure points in Russia's global operations. This strategy leverages the asymmetric nature of modern warfare, targeting Russia in theaters where its vulnerabilities are exposed and its resources are already stretched. There is nothing unethical about this approach. Ukraine, defending its sovereignty against an unprovoked invasion, is entitled to employ indirect strategies that undermine Russia's ability to sustain its war efforts. Furthermore, many of these militias are fighting for their autonomy and freedom against external interference, much like Ukraine itself. Collaborating with them highlights a shared interest in resisting imperial ambitions while denying Russia the unchecked global reach it seeks. This tactic also mirrors historical precedents where nations supported proxies to counter larger adversaries, which is widely accepted as part of international realpolitik. By training militias, Ukraine is not only defending its own sovereignty, but also contributing to a broader resistance against authoritarian expansionism. On the basis of open data, BBC journalists, together with the Mediaphone publication, identified the names of 80,973 Russian soldiers who died during the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The details of the Russian armed forces' losses and their chronology were published in a story on the BBC website. The journalists, supported by a team of volunteers, have been tracking the deaths of the Russian soldiers since the beginning of the Russian invasion, systematizing reports from Russian officials and media, as well as reports from relatives and colleagues of the victims with photos of the graves. According to updated data, the number of casualties among volunteer soldiers in the Russian army is rapidly increasing. The journalists and volunteers include in this category those who signed a contract with the Russian Ministry of Defense after the outbreak of the war. Their share in the total is growing further, and now amounts to 22% of the total number of confirmed losses of the Russian side, the report says. Many volunteers die within 2 to 4 weeks of arriving on the front line. For comparison, according to the publication's data a year earlier, in November 2023, the volunteers accounted for only 14% of the total number of casualties. The actual number may be higher, as analysts and volunteers cannot reliably confirm the origin of all the dead. Obituaries of most of them are accompanied by photos of men in civilian clothes. Thus, there is a high probability that they were mobilized to the front or voluntarily signed contracts. The share of convicts sent to the front from places of imprisonment, on the contrary, is decreasing. In November 2023, they accounted for 26% of all casualties, and now they make up only 18%. However, units composed of prisoners are still deployed on the front line and take on part of the combat load. The publication also separately analyzed the confirmed losses of valuable Russian personnel from professional contract units of the regular army to compare them with the total number of losses among mobilized citizens, volunteers, and prisoners. The lists included the soldiers from the elite units of the Airborne Forces, Marines, Special Forces units of the Main Intelligence Directorate, GRU, and the Special Services, the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation, and the Federal Guard Service of the Russian Federation, as well as the pilots of the Russian Aerospace Forces. The journalists identified the branches of the military by the information in the obituaries about where the deceased served or by the insignia on their uniforms. The journalists emphasized that the real losses of the Russian army in the Russian-Ukrainian war are higher, as not all reports of Russian military deaths are reported in open sources. For example, the Goryushko Project, analyzing posts by relatives of the victims on social media and obituaries in the media, has already recorded 83,240 killed Russian soldiers as of 12 o'clock on November 29, 2024. Ukrainian Special Forces from the Timur unit received new Taipan 100 bomber drones. The Kolo Charitable Foundation said that one Taipan 100 strike unmanned aerial system included 2 bomber drones. Recently, the foundation handed over a batch of aid to the special unit of the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, which was raised as part of the Herkit project. And all this pile of special-purpose equipment is masterfully combined into a single complex to destroy the invaders, the foundation said. The first version of Taipan 100 strike bomber drone has a combat radius of up to 120 kilometers. It is stated that the system was almost impossible to suppress due to the peculiarities of the signal transmission and constant change of control frequencies. The Taipan 100 will enable the Timur Special Unit operators to fly long distances behind enemy lines and hit high-value targets. The party phone by Toro ground control stations will increase the maximum possible range of the drone. Expensive equipment and infrastructure facilities behind enemy lines are within the range of bombers and kamikaze drones, the foundation said.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.